Let's do this. I want to play a clip of John Kerry speaking earlier today, and then we'll kind of dissect it a little by little,
Sure.
and definitely want your insight on this. Let's take a listen in.
But here is a fundamental reality. If the choice is, they are combining to destroy hopes for peace on both sides and increasingly cementing an irreversible one-state reality that most people do not actually want. Today, there are a similar number of Jews and Palestinians living between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. They have a choice. They can choose to live together in one state, or they can separate into two states. But here is a fundamental reality. If the choice is one state, Israel can either be Jewish or democratic. It cannot be both. And it won't ever really be at peace.
All right, so that was some pretty powerful language for the relationship that we've seen over the last 8 years. Unpack that statement. Israel could either be a Jewish state or a democracy if it chooses to go with a one-state solution, which he's saying their actions seem to inevitably be leading there.
Yeah, and it's worth starting just with the observation that for the first time in quite a while, there's a considerable block of the higher upper echelon of the Israeli government who is overtly against the two-state possibility. You've got cabinet ministers just saying flat out. So Naftali Bennett, a cabinet minister, just saying it's over, forget it. There won't be a two-state solution, right? So it's not just Kerry saying that this might happen; it's that it's actually part of it's happening.
Yeah.
Discursively, it's happening, and on the ground, it's been happening. It's been happening since 1967, in all honesty.
Right.
So the statement is it's one of those things that it can sound sort of crass because we start counting demographics, right? We start counting Jews and counting Arabs, and people can get really uncomfortable. But this is a reality that I think if you're not willing to look at demographics, you're not going to understand any part of the Middle East.
Right.
And it's simply a matter that if you take the place that Israel currently controls, at least from a military perspective, it's about half Jewish and half not Jewish.
Yeah, it was amazing. I saw a clip earlier today where the idea that it was half Jewish, and this was obviously it was Fox News, so you take their commentators with a grain of salt, but the complete rejection of the idea that it was half Jewish, half Palestinian, and that the fact that that essentially dismissing everything that John Kerry said as deluded or dishonest. Here's the difficulty with this is that this is still coming from the stated positions of the U.S. government, but somehow we're getting a faction in the United States that's able to say that this is not reality, that this is not a tenable idea, and this is within the United States, right? We're not even talking about the forces in Israel that are against the two-state solutions. So how does that spin work? I mean, I get it, but how does that work, and how does that play in the Jewish community?
Well, and I think the first thing to say is that the vast majority of at least the American Jewish community is really torn by these ideas and really doesn't want to face up to it. There are ways in which you will see occasionally you'll see like an ad taken out in the New York Times by a right-wing group, generally a right-wing Jewish group, but certainly the Christian Zionists are part of this story also, and it'll make an argument that. Exactly kind of what you were saying, that no, if you really look at the demographics, as long as Jewish birth rates stay stable, then for X amount of generations, you can be confident that there will be a Jewish majority. That gives no solace to anybody, right? The idea that there would be some sort of genetic birth race to maintain a democracy on paper, but really it has to be kept up by a desperate attempt to have more babies. That's the argument, basically, is that there are people who say that the state of Israel could absorb at least the West Bank. Gaza is often left out of this, but could absorb the West Bank, just make it part of Israel, and then as long as birth rates stayed more or less stable and immigration into Israel stayed in a place that's been more or less, that for a long while, there would be more Jews than Arabs. That's an argument, and the thing is, that's projecting forward. You don't know what things are going to be.
Right.
In principle,
Yeah.
The issue is not it's not really just about sheer numbers. It's about whether or not there is a nation that does represent the Palestinian people.
Right.
Right. And its existence is the thing that at least gives the possibility for arguing for a Jewish state. Right. Arguing if you don't have that opportunity on the other side, then it kind of it just becomes this race towards counting. Right. This race towards births. So the argument that you're hearing there on the right wing is simply a playing with numbers. And I'm not a demographer. I can't tell you exactly. What I can tell you is that if you're Israel and you're spending the next 70 years counting birth rates, desperately trying to make sure there are more Jews than Arabs in 50 years, you're going to look it looks terrible. Right. It's a bad look. And it's a bad look that leads to really awful thinking and thinking that should make Jewish people uncomfortable, in all honesty.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you don't know what the future will hold, but you do know that without the presence of a Palestinian state, then it's going to have to be a state in which either there is some form of overt oppression beyond what there is now, right? Not in the context of occupation, the context of long-term presence, whatever that is. Use whatever words you want, or there will be times where Jews are not in charge of Israel, right? Where the prime minister isn't Jewish, and this is something that, given the reason that the state exists, the reason that Jews around the world want to see it exist, is a problem.
So you actually segued right into the main question that I wanted to hear your opinion on was this idea that it's going to be either or. Yeah. Right. So which one do you think is less tenable? Right. Which one is more readily rejected? A democracy in which it's possible that there may be a prime minister that's not Jewish, or a two-state solution? Which one do you think is a worse solution for the hard right in Israel?
It's hard. I mean, you're really offering me two really bitter drinks. I think it's hard to say, but there's really no question in my mind that the Israeli right would rather be an oppressor than to have to deal with an Arab majority government or an Arab controlled parliament. I mean, this is you have to put it in the context of the space, of the people. That's war. Yeah. I hope not. I hope it doesn't happen. I remain somebody who is waiting for that corner to turn. It might seem like it's never going to be there, but nothing else looks better to me. But if we end up in that situation, I hope not. But if you, I see a one-state solution being essentially turn to Lebanon in the 70s. It will be. I mean, the Israeli right. And the Israeli center are not going to stand for that. It betrays the principles on which the nation was founded. Right, either does, in theory, either losing the democracy or losing the Jewishness would betray the principles. But the more precious principle there is Jewishness. Right, you have to understand that, particularly in the minds of diasporic Jews, the reason Israel exists is so there's a place that if it gets that bad again, there's a place to go. Right, and that's the non-negotiable for most Jews across the world. Not all. I mean, you certainly can't speak for everybody. But the idea that would not be the case, that it would be a place in which you did not have a sense of security, that there was first and foremost a safe spot for Jews, that's not going to be acceptable. And then locally, there's a lot of religious concerns that are going to make that really hard. And then there's just political issues.